Hello, and welcome to this news event held by the law firm Peiffer, Wolf, Carr, Kane, Conway, and Wise, or Peiffer Wolf for short. You'll be hearing from three speakers today, and then we'll open the floor for questions during the Q&A period. The Q&A period will be for reporters only, and if you wish to ask a question, you can use the raise your hand function, and your line will be unmuted when it's your turn to ask a question. For more info, you can go to lostembryos.com where you can find a copy of the lawsuit, news release, and other related materials. I'm also going to share a direct link to the news release landing page in the chat here. So sending that right now. All right, as I mentioned, you'll be hearing from three speakers today. First will be Adam Wolf, partner at Peiffer Wolf. Second will be Sarah Depoian. Third, Carolyn Bester, daughter of Sarah Depoian. Okay, so let's proceed with our first speaker, Adam Wolf, partner at Peiffer Wolf. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you, Max, and thank you for joining this news conference. My name is Adam Wolf, and I'm a partner at Peiffer Wolf, Carr, Kane, Conway, and Wise, or Peiffer Wolf for short. Today, we filed a lawsuit on behalf of Sarah Depoian, who you'll hear from shortly, against Dr. Merle Berger. Dr. Berger is a former professor at Harvard Medical School and the founder of Boston IVF, one of the country's largest fertility clinics. Sarah and her husband went to Dr. Berger in 1979 to 1980 because they were unable to conceive naturally. Dr. Berger promised to perform an intrauterine insemination, or an IUI, using sperm from an anonymous donor who resembled Sarah's husband, whom she did not know and who did not know her. But that is not what happened. Dr. Berger secretly inserted his own sperm into Sarah. He did so without her consent and against her wishes. Some people call this horrific act medical rape. But regardless of what you call it, Dr. Berger's heinous and intentional misconduct is unethical, unacceptable, and unlawful. Dr. Berger's misconduct was not a mistake, and I'm sorry for being so graphic, but this is what he did. Dr. Berger masturbated in his own medical office, walked over to his patient while he was carrying his own sperm, and then deliberately inserted that sperm into his patient's body, all the while knowing that she did not consent. The artificial insemination that Dr. Berger performed resulted in a pregnancy, and Sarah's daughter, Carolyn, was born in 1981. This year, Carolyn purchased DNA kits from Ancestry.com and 23andMe to learn more about her family history. But the results did not reveal a direct match for her biological father. Instead, Carolyn found out that she was related to two people who turned out to be Dr. Berger's granddaughter and Dr. Berger's second cousin. After speaking with one of her newfound relatives, Carolyn pieced together that Dr. Berger is her biological father. Carolyn then discussed the DNA results with her mother, Sarah, who had not previously known the identity of the purportedly anonymous sperm donor. To be clear, Sarah would not have consented if Dr. Berger had told her that he was going to insert his own sperm into her body. Sarah feels incredibly violated. She feels like she's the victim of assault. And we're all wondering if Dr. Berger may have violated other unsuspecting patients. After his assault on Sarah, Dr. Berger went on to become one of the country's most prominent fertility doctors. He founded one of the nation's largest fertility clinics, Boston IVF, and he was an associate clinical professor at Harvard Medical School for over 35 years. But Dr. Berger's professional achievements do not excuse his heinous actions, and they will not shield him from justice. He knew better than to abuse his patient. Thank you. I look forward to taking your questions during the Q&A session.
Again, that was Adam Wolf, partner at Peiffer Wolf, and we'll be going to our second speaker, Sarah Depoian. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for joining this news conference and listening to our story. My name is Sarah Depoian. In late 1979, my husband and I met with Dr. Berger for fertility advice and the process necessary for me to conceive. My husband and I were unable to conceive on our own. Dr. Berger told us he could perform an intrauterine insemination, an IUI, with the sperm of a medical resident who had similar physical traits to my husband. The donor would be unknown to us, and we would be unknown to him. We fully trusted Dr. Berger. He was a medical professional. It's hard to imagine not trusting your own doctor. We never dreamt he would abuse his position of trust and perpetrate this extreme violation. I am struggling to process it, but this never ever will change the love we have for our daughter, Carolyn. If anything, this has lit a fire in me to fight for her and any other unsuspecting victim, whether by Dr. Berger or another fertility doctor. I want to thank my daughter, Carolyn, for her support and love. She is so brave. I'm incredibly proud of her. She has given me the strength to share our family story. I am so much stronger with her by my side. Today, our voices will be an instrument of justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, that was Sarah Depoian. And next we'll go to our third and final speaker, Carolyn Bester.
Thank you for being here today and listening to our story. My name is Carolyn Bester and my mom is Sarah Depoian. First, I want to let my mom know how much I love her. I will always support her, and there's no chance I wouldn't be here today standing next to her. Earlier this year, I received my DNA results from Ancestry.com and 23andMe to learn more about my genetic history. I was very eager to learn more about my family. I knew plenty of people who've tried DNA tests, and I actually thought I was going to have a lot of fun doing the research. The test results didn't show a direct match for my biological father, but I identified two relatives who I learned were related to Dr. Berger. I spoke to one of them, and I started piecing it all together. To say I was shocked when I figured this out would be an extreme understatement. It feels like reality has shifted. I know who my real family is. That will never change. But I will always struggle with what Dr. Berger did to my mom and to us. My shock quickly turned to anger, and that anger bound us together and pushed us forward as a family to seek accountability. My mom put her trust in Dr. Berger as a medical professional during one of the most vulnerable times in her life. He had all the power, and she had none. It is deeply disturbing that he did not act with the integrity and ethics we would expect from a doctor in that situation. I'm so proud of my mom for speaking out, and I'm honored to stand by her. But most of all, I'm proud to be her daughter. And together we will be heard. And today we're demanding accountability for our family. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, that was Carolyn Bester. And that takes us to the Q&A portion of the call. If you wish to ask a question, you can use the raise your hand function and your line will be unmuted when it's your turn to ask a question. As a reminder, the Q&A is only for reporters. If you're having any issues with the raise hand function or your audio, there's a text-based Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom console here, and you can type a question in there and we'll try to get to those as well. And before we begin, I do want to mention really quickly that we'll have a video recording of this news event available later today. It'll be up at lostembryos.com, or you can contact Max Carlin to get that. That's lostembryos.com, no spaces. Okay, let's go ahead and take our first question. It's going to come from Felice Fryer at the Boston Globe. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I have more than one question. Will I have more than one chance, or can I?
Why don't you give us a couple quick ones? There are a few
Okay.
people in line, and then we'll circle back for follow-ups.
All right, great. Okay. My first question is, where did this happen? Where did the insemination take place? Was it in a hospital or in his private office? And I'm also wondering why Carolyn is not a plaintiff in this suit.
Sarah, why don't you answer the first one and I'll answer the second one.
Okay. The office was in Dedham, just off Route 9, across from the Chestnut Hill Mall, and it was an office situation.
Okay, so it was his private office.
It was his private office, yes.
Okay, great.
Felice, thanks for your question too. My firm represents both Sarah and Carolyn, who have very different injuries. And here we're talking today only about Sarah's injuries and what Dr. Berger inflicted upon Sarah.
So does Carolyn not have standing to sue him?
We believe that Carolyn also does have viable claims, but they're very different claims and very different injuries. So we have brought Sarah's claim first and separately.
So then there will be a second lawsuit, you expect?
There very well might be.
Okay, I have more questions, but I know others are in line, so thank you.
Thanks, Felice.
Thanks, Felice. All right, our next question is coming from David Bienick at WCVB Boston. Go ahead, David. Just unmute yourself before you begin.
Hi, folks. Thanks for taking these questions. First of all, if at all possible, Sarah and Adam are not very well framed for TV. The bottom of your faces are likely to be cut off, given how you're framed on TV. Is it at all possible for you to show us less headroom so that your head appears higher in the screen? Carolyn is fine. If you see how Carolyn is, that's much better, Adam.
Sure, David. We'll have them adjust.
And that's much better, Sarah.
Sarah, you need to get taller.
I'm standing, I'm sorry.
All right, we'll do our best, David. Do you have a
Yes.
substantive
Yes,
question?
I actually have a substantive question as well. As soon as Sarah is ready.
You look great, Sarah.
I appreciate it, Sarah.
Okay.
I wanted to know, you mentioned in the press release that you had reached out to Dr. Berger. What form did that take? How did you reach out to him? And what was his response? And my second question is, have you taken any other action against Dr. Berger before filing this lawsuit, such as filing a complaint with the medical board in Massachusetts?
I appreciate the question. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
We reached out to Dr. Berger, like we do anybody else who is a would-be defendant in any of our cases like this. We spoke with Dr. Berger's counsel. And sometimes when, we speak to a doctor, sometimes they'll say, oh, no, absolutely, I never did this. This wasn't me. And here, Dr. Berger didn't deny it. Didn't deny that, our allegations, didn't protest it. We might have differences in, what is legally actionable and, how serious these injuries are. We think they are incredibly serious. We know they're incredibly serious, but we have not heard anything from Dr. Berger denying that he inflicted this upon Sarah. Your second question, David?
David is no longer in the question queue.
Okay.
But David, please rejoin if you'd like to do a follow-up. We have a couple quick questions in the box from the Associated Press. Do we know where Berger is now, if he's employed, and can we confirm that the lawsuit has been filed?
The lawsuit has been filed. It was filed earlier today. Dr. Berger has two homes, one in Boston, Massachusetts, and one on Martha's Vineyard. He is no longer practicing.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. And our next question.
I'm sorry, Max. I remembered David's other question, which was, have we filed a complaint with the medical board? We have not filed a complaint with the medical board for a couple of reasons. One is Dr. Berger is no longer practicing. The second is that he hid his misconduct. And so we didn't know about this until decades after he did this action and after he stopped practicing medicine.
Okay. Let's go ahead to our next question. It's coming from Abby Niezgoda at NBC 10. Abby, please unmute yourself.
You all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I did receive a brief statement from Dr. Berger's counsel, and I wanted to know your reaction to the following. He said, quote, "The allegations, which have changed repeatedly in the 6 months since the plaintiff's attorney first contacted Dr. Berger, have no legal or factual merit and will be disproven in court." Can you speak to that? Have the allegations changed, quote, repeatedly? And do you consider this a denial?
The allegations have been 100% the same since the beginning, and we're sorry that it's gotten to this point, but we look forward to proving our case in court.
And I have one follow-up question. Does Dr. Berger's relative work at Boston IVF? There is a Brian Berger on staff. I didn't know if you had heard or if you knew anything about family members continuing to work at the practice.
I think we're not aware.
Thank you.
Might be a question for Boston IVF.
All right, our next question is coming from Felice Fryer, Boston Globe, with a follow-up. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Felice.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, great. So I have a question for Carolyn. When you did this test, was this the first that you learned that your person you thought was your father was actually not your biological father?
Yes, that is true.
And do you see, was that in itself upsetting?
Yes, it was. There was a period of time where I knew that my father was not my biological father, but I did not know who my biological father was. There was a couple weeks, about a month. So I had sort of adjusted to that reality when I learned who my biological father was. So I can definitely tell you that that was its own shock. That was what really I didn't get out of bed for a day after that, to be honest.
So that was worse for you in some way?
I think it was worse. Yes. I don't know how to really answer what's worse, but
Yeah.
it was really, really shocking and horrible to find that out. That's your life story, and that's the story of how you were created.
Yeah.
Is not great, to say the least.
And
Okay.
I'll just say, Felice, the reason that Sarah didn't mention this to Carolyn is that Dr. Berger told Sarah not to say anything about the IUI to anybody.
So Adam, I have a kind of legalese question for you. Why is this in federal court when the only law you're citing is Massachusetts law? And what about, isn't there a statute of limitations?
Yeah, I appreciate your question. The reason we're in federal court is because the plaintiff and the defendant live in different states. And when the amount is above a certain amount of controversy, that allows you to be in federal court. Statute of limitations, yes, the statute of limitations for fraudulent concealment and the other claims that we have brought starts to run when you find out about what had been fraudulently concealed. And that was less than a year ago.
All right, let's go to.
Okay. Can I ask a few more questions?
Let's do one follow-up, Felice, and I'm going to do a couple more questions, and we'll come back to you. Okay.
Okay, good. I'm wondering if Carolyn could tell us where she lives. I guess Sarah is in Maine, and also anything and just a little more background about each of you. What you do for a living. Just a little bit more information. Carolyn, do you have children of your own? That kind of thing.
So I'll go first. I'm in New Jersey. I'm a lawyer, and I do have a child. I have a son. But this obviously affects him as well. And that's actually one reason why, you know, we want accountability in this case, is because I want to be able to look my son in the eye and tell him that, you know, we stood up for something that was wrong, that happened in our family.
Sarah?
Yes, hi. My husband and I are in Maine. We moved out of Massachusetts 3 years ago. We are both retired. Anything more you need to know?
I think that's probably good. She can get us with a follow-up if she needs more.
Okay, thank you.
Let's take a couple questions from the box here. This is for Adam. Do we know Berger's lawyer? Do we name who's representing him? We start with that?
Sure. Dr. Berger is represented by somebody named Ian Pinto, I believe. Pinto.
Okay. And another quick one from the box. Carolyn, your date of birth and your age currently?
January 19th, 1981, and I'm 42.
Okay. I'm going to take another question out of the queue. It's coming from Steve LeBlanc at Associated Press. Thank you for your patience, everybody. We're just trying to get to all the questions. Go ahead, Steve, and unmute yourself. Steve, you're allowed to talk if you'd like to unmute yourself. If you're having any issues, we could just take your questions from the box.
No, never get used to that. Yeah, I was just trying to get the name of the lawyer representing Dr. Berger. You said his name was, I'm sorry, it was IAN?
Ian, IAN space Pinto, Pinto, I believe.
Pinto. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. We're going to take a few more questions and then we'll probably take the bulk of them offline. Let's see what we got here. Let's take a follow-up from David Bienick, WCVB Boston. David, go ahead.
Hello again. Carolyn mentioned that she was able to piece together after she got her genetic testing that it was Dr. Berger who was her biological father. How could you say more about how you were able to piece that together? And does this mean that he is statistically the only person who could be your biological father?
I'll say a a little bit about it, and then I'll let Adam kind of finish off that question. So actually, somebody who was related to him reached out to me and asked me how we were related, and I said, interesting, I don't know. And then at that point, I had known the name of my mom's fertility doctor, and she informed me in that conversation that she was related to Dr. Berger, which is why it led me to my conclusion that he was my biological father. But Adam, you can speak to the statistical significance of.
You know, as I mentioned before, we often try to speak with the doctor or the doctor's representative before filing suit. And sometimes the doctor would say, oh, no, this couldn't have been me. I didn't do this, never me, not at all. And to his apparent credit then, Dr. Berger never said that. Never said I never did this, never said it wasn't me. And, you know, I understand now through his statement, Dr. Berger might be trying to deny that. And it would be very sad if Dr. Berger today continues to try to fraudulently conceal what he did to Sarah 40 plus years ago.
Right, let's go to our next question, and we're just going to try to hit a couple more here. This is from Jim Morelli at Fox 25. Jim says, hundreds of women use Boston IVF. Do we know if the clinics have safeguards now in place so that a Dr. Berger incident doesn't happen again?
It's a great question. I really appreciate that. To be clear, no doctor should do to his patient what was done to Sarah. I encourage you to call Boston IVF or any other clinic to see what safeguards there are there to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
All right, and one more from the box. This is from Hannah Reel, WGBH Boston. Carolyn, can you say which relatives of Dr. Berger you reached out to? Without naming them, I guess.
Well, just to be clear, I didn't reach out to them. They reached out to me. But I mean, I think I'm gonna leave her name out of this because I don't think she's done anything wrong, and I don't really think she needs her name in the media. But you know, if Dr. Berger wants to know who it is, like I'm sure he can ask for that as the case goes on.
All right, we're going to take one final follow-up from Felice Fryer at Boston Globe. Felice, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you. Just a quick follow-up for Carolyn. If you don't mind telling me how old your son is.
He's 5.
Thank you. And I have a question for Adam, but we can do it offline. Fine with me.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, everybody. If you do have any questions following this news event, feel free to contact me. This is Max Carlin. You can reach me at 703-276-3255. And as I mentioned, there will be a recording of this news event available online later today. It'll be at lostembryos.com. We do thank you for joining this news event held by the law firm Peiffer Wolff. And that concludes today's news event. Thank you so much.